gozaimasu. This is a big day. Here's a rose for you, and a rose for me, and a rose for Hannah, who's coming on for our anniversary today. There's so many things going on right now. So, first of all, happy Father's Day. We're going to put a little post on King Lear. The Mother Faulkner, also on Instagram, is doing Who's the Worst Father in Literature. So, we're posting a father. I don't know that he's the worst father, but he's challenged. Like so many Shakespeare characters, there are good and bad and everything in between on that spectrum. And I wanted to mention a little bit about that. When we started this last year, we were a couple months into the pandemic, the lockdown, the whatever, and we were trying to figure out, how can we contribute? And so I'm going to, first of all, let me finish. So not only is it Father's Day, it was Juneteenth yesterday, a new holiday in the States, but a celebration, commemoration of the Emancipation Proclamation and the enforcement of that. And it was so great we drove upstate, some friends of mine and I, and the bridge was all lit up in the Pan-African colors, and we saw celebrations and picnics going on all over the place, and that was really heartening to see that. And we posted something on, there's a lot of slaves, and slavery in Shakespeare mentioned as metaphors, as I mentioned, mostly metaphor, but it was part of the fabric of the various societies that he deals with, whether it's Greece or Rome or England, not so much there, but anyway, so that it's the solstice today, so that's when we started last year, as we decided to do it on the solstice, Midsummer's Day. Midsummer's Day, sort of, in general, is supposed to be on the solstice, the longest day of the year. And Midsummer Night's Dream happens, I presume, not on the eve, because he doesn't say eve, he says Midsummer Night's Dream, so it's the day of the night, which is June 24th, which traditionally, June 24th, old style, they like to fix things, and even though the solstice moves a little bit, anyway, so it was traditionally June 24th, which is this Thursday. So that's Midsummer Night's Dream. It's Pride Month, so I have on my little tiny rainbow earrings, and Queen Elizabeth has this fantastic portrait holding a rainbow. It's called the Rainbow Portrait. Iris is in Shakespeare, which is the goddess of the rainbow. So it's always amazing to me how something, 400 years old or however old, has everything that's going on with us now. So I should have some champagne here, to celebrate the fact that we have stuck with this for a year, and we're very grateful to everybody who stuck with this with us. Ooh, that's a fun little pun. Stuck with this with us, and it's not really a pun, but anyway. So the other thing is, I am going to give away books today as a celebration of the anniversary. So the first person to comment on the live show, and then the first person to comment on the posted live show gets a book. And just DM us with your mailing information, and we would love to send you a book if you don't have one. I'm Garrett Qualey, author of Botanical Shakespeare. I met Hannah on a Zoom after party for the Urban Tree Festival, and we started doing a combination of showing how Shakespeare heals the brain and the mind and the body and the emotions, physical, and the plants that he mentions have all these healing properties. He talks a lot about, one of the things that we haven't even gotten to yet, apart from the fact that there's over 170 plants, is that he talks about healing. He says, in general, we cover the plants in Botanical Shakespeare specifically because nobody had done that before. But also he talks about distilling and herbs and all these different things, and apothecaries and the things like that. So there's a lot in there about healing on many, many levels. It's a panoply all the time. And if you only look at one thing, you're going to lose the whole picture, and you're not going to be able to deal with, process, enjoy, fully live the whole picture that you're having. And what happens is, if you ignore certain sides, it keeps coming and tapping you on the shoulder larger and louder and stronger until you do pay attention to all of it. And so for me, I believe that Shakespeare is a shortcut to awareness, which is why we call it Shakespeare Therapy. And the herbal side, the food side, the locavore side, the medical side, the whatever you want to call it, is also, the roots of our knowledge. And just because sniffing, I have my mince because we're doing mince today as an anniversary. We did a little mint in the beginning of the show last year, but this is my spearmint. And because he says mince in Midsummer Winter's Tale, we decided we could do all the mints, or a bunch of the mints, instead of just peppermint. Spearmint, well, I'll let Hannah tell you, but this is what I have been growing, and it's actually been growing. This is a little miracle for me. And if I can do it in my loud, noisy New York apartment, you can do it too. Look at those little tiny buds and things. I thought I had actually killed it, but it's alive. So, the line of the week. I just wanted to have just not even a whole minute, a moment of silence for the fact that we started this because of the pandemic. Everything that we have all gone through this last year, which is a lot. And we can brush it up under the carpet and run out and resume our lives or do whatever. But a lot has happened. And there's a little kind of vein of PTSD in a way that has to be acknowledged and processed about people we've lost, jobs that have been lost, money that's been lost, things that have been changed, things that have been shifted drastically in many, many people's lives. And so I'm going to just say, let's take a moment, one moment of silence. And the line of the week that you can think about if you want to, while that's happening, is, there is a divinity that shapes our ends. Rough hew them how we will. And I love that it's will and not may. Rough hew, I think, is such a funny term because it's like taking a block of wood or stone and like taking an axe to it. It's not a fine chisel. It's not carving out this beautiful thing. We are rough hewing our lives. We're just kind of like hacking away at how to shape our destinies. And there is a divinity that shapes our ends. Rough hew them how we will. So just take a moment to remember everything that has happened to all of us, and to open our hearts to that, and with love and understanding. So now we're going to bring Hannah on. Hello, Hannah. Look, you're refreshed. Your hair is back to pre-pandemic hair.
And a bit before.
I have to say, there's a little bit of a, in the best possible way, a little Morticia Addams thing going on there. Now, I say that with love because I played Morticia Addams in the 4th grade play. So I have great love for Morticia Addams. So, anyway, okay, here we are. It's our anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yes, I'll cheers you with coffee. That's what I have. It's not very Shakespearean. Oh, and the other thing that I forgot to mention is that it is Rose Month. And so I got you some roses. I can't get them to you, but I'll just... Here you go. There you go. Oh, and I tried to make them for the Juneteenth colors, and I put fresh red roses in my dried yellow roses. And, being a Shakespearean, I think of metaphors all the time, the dried around the new freshness in the middle, always growing, always coming up from the center, yada, yada. As you know, I can go on forever. So let's talk about mints, all the different kind of mints. How many mints are there?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, the thing with mints is that, well, there are a lot of them. But they've been, there are so many different, there are different species, but then there's different varieties of mints as well.
Right.
So, obviously, we've got our spearmint like you've got there, and peppermint. But, then you've got all these things like chocolate mint and, all the other weird and wacky flavors that you get.
Is that means a new cultivar though? Because that, I can't imagine they had chocolate mint in the 16th century, or certainly they didn't call it that because they didn't even have chocolate yet. Right?
Yeah, and it's a lot of these things, as gardening technology has come along, we've been more able to create new varieties, and I wish I got my glasses on because I can't see a thing. But chocolate mint wouldn't have been around in the 1600s. But the way that technology and science is now, we can fiddle around a lot more with plants and get all these fantastic new flavors and colors and all sorts of stuff. So
well, that actually started happening in Queen Elizabeth's reign, and that's why another term that's so much in Shakespeare is graffing. He says graffing or grafting, because all apples come from the crab apple, and so scions or slips were taken from the crab apple, and other sort of hybrids were grown from that. But they started doing it with a lot of other plants too, and the religious people freaked out because they said this is against God's plan. So, and there was a book about grafting trees or grafting trees that went into 6 or 8 printings. It was so popular. People were just mad about this stuff. So yeah, it's fascinating.
I did not know that. With the peppermint, peppermint itself is a crossbreed. It's Mentha X piperita. So it's actually a cross between watermint and spearmint. So it's that in itself is probably the most famous, kind of bread mint that there is. But it is the one that we use most, and it's the one you find in supermarkets and tea bags, and it's the one that's got the most the one that's got the most so-called medicinal value, because there's been the most research on it, so we know what it does. Chocolate mint, there has been no research on. Peppermint is where to start with peppermint? Most people know about peppermint for its use for the digestion, don't they? And it's the kind of infusion that you can drink after you've had heavy food. If you want to just kind of, we're going to talk about flatulence again, but it's going to take down the flatulence. It's going to take down abdominal bloating as well. But then it's got all sorts of other really fantastic uses, like it's antispasmodic, so it relieves spasm, so it can relieve spasm in the digestion, but also spasms to do with period pain, and it's so aromatic, isn't it? When you crush and sniff it. Volatile oils. So when you in that aspect, it's very, very used on an emotional level, on an effect on our nervous systems. It's uplifting, but it's also quite calming. You can do the same with spearmint too.
Well, I remember in the first show you told us that mints have a square stem. Do they all have a square stem?
Most, but not all. It's one of those funny things. So if something is part of what's called the Lamiaceae family, which is sort of the so-called dead nettle family, but it's also called the mint family as well. Most plants in that family will have a square stem. So by square stem, I'm talking about if you take a cross section of it, it will look like a perfect square, and they usually do. And you can kind of feel. Can you feel the ridges on yours?
I can. I absolutely can. And it's so fascinating, because then I think I got lemon balm or something, and that seemed to have a square stem as well. Is that in the mint family?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's in the mint family. So what you find with mints is that they all they have the square stem, but then their leaves are arranged kind of opposite each other on one side, and then the next one up the stem is kind of like that.
Yeah.
And then like that. And then like that. So, you know, it's you can do dances with plants, it's great. So, you know, usually that's another kind of classic sign that something's part of that mint family, really.
Okay, so you've got that. Now, I just recently read that spearmint is more cooling than peppermint, that peppermint has a kind of a, like, because pepper, it has a little bit of a hot punch, whereas spearmint is more cooling. So if you want to cool down, and we've had some very hot days in New York. I'm in New York, New York. Hannah's in Lincoln, Lincolnshire. And we are, and so make spearmint tea rather than peppermint tea if you want to lower your, you know, overall body temperature or something. And you can also soak just a washcloth or something in spearmint infused water and put it on your forehead or the back of your neck if you're hot, and that just sort of amps up the cooling down process. So Is there anything else specific to spearmint that because this is what I have here, and look, it's even flowering. I'm so cool. And I did, thank you for reminding me. I forgot to do the crush and sniff, because you're releasing the oil. So when you're breathing, that just clears up the, you know, just sort of activates and cleanses the mind and the body, brain fog and everything. If you add an herb to that, like mint, you're sort of, I was reading about yesterday, all these memory supplements and brain supplements for brain health. And if you get one buff, you get 3 bottles, you can get this. And if you get 6 bottles, you can, you know, and order it constantly and have it on. Or you can get some mint and some rosemary and crush and sniff it every day. Try that. It seems so simple. We don't trust the things that are simple. Why is that, Hannah? What is your take on that?
I don't know. I think as human beings, we're kind of, I was talking with someone about this the other day. I think, you know, as years have gone by, maybe it's always been the same way, that we've been attracted to new and shiny things.
Well,
and new and shiny things, it's like, oh, wow, what's that? Wow, what's that? And, you know, I mean, I have come across quite a lot in my life as a herbalist. You know, if people say, what do you do? And you go, oh, I'm a medical herbalist. And they go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But they can talk to someone who's doing some really crazy, wacky new therapy and go, oh, wow, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's like, but kind of been around for hundreds of years, herbalists is quite good.
Yeah.
So it's weird. You know, we're kind of attracted to the new and the shiny, and we kind of forget that just because something's been around for a long time doesn't necessarily make it irrelevant. It actually makes it more relevant. Yeah. Because it's always going to be there, and the bright, shiny new therapy that costs a small fortune might not be.
Right, and they've often found that to be the case. So yes, what we do here is we anchor you in wisdom, we anchor you in healing. We sort of clear the perspective in mind and body. That's the Renaissance tenet that I go by, that inspired me when I first, I guess I was sort of midway through my research life, was that they were trying to do this thing called learning through delight. So something that lights up the body and the mind. And it's not always fun. It does include everything, but I don't know. I actually find everything. As I always say, I love experiments and stuff. I love trying to see what works with your own individual body, and agency and sovereignty, taking your power back through cultivating your own wisdom and cultivating your own methodology of healing through knowledge. Knowledge. That's what it's about. Anyway, I am coming to London. I booked my ticket. I'm coming to the UK. Hopefully I'll be visiting Hannah in Lincoln. And it has been a pleasure. It has been a delight. We hope to sort of shake things up. We've introduced a cocktail of the month. We're introducing a recipe of the month, only with Shakespeare plants. And we've already had a winner with somebody commenting here. So I'm going to title this. I'm going to post it. First person to comment there also gets a book. And maybe we'll do it next week too. Just for the month of June, do some book giveaways. Hannah, delight to see you. Can't wait to see you in person. And there is a divinity that shapes our ends. Rough hew them how we will.